welcome back. You have to excuse me, I've got a croaky voice today and I hope you can hear me okay. I'm still getting over a bit of a cold, but hopefully it won't ruin the video and you'll be able to understand me and I'll be able to and I'll be able to get through it okay. So in today's video I wanted to share with you some of the things that helped me get over a traumatic labour and birth. Now I haven't really shared my labour and birth story. I think I've probably shared it briefly with a few people, very close people, but I haven't shared it with the masses of people. If you are interested in hearing my story, please let me know in the comments below. I didn't want to share it before now because I didn't want it to be a negative experience. Obviously, if you've had a bad experience in a labour and birth, they are real feelings, but I didn't want it to be a negative experience. I didn't want to share negativity because other women have to go through it. If I have another baby, will have to go through it again. And I wanted to see the positive in it and not just the negative. And obviously the facts are the facts, but kind of waiting until I had come to terms with it, dealt with it in my own mind, I felt that I could then be able to share it in a better light, if that makes any sense. So if you are interested, please let me know in the comments below. These aren't necessarily tips, these are just what helped me. Looking back, the things that have kind of helped me get through it, helped me deal with it, helped me move on. So the first one that I want to share is to give yourself time. My little boy is nearly 17 months old now, and just giving myself time to deal with it, move on, and to realise that actually 17 months on, I'm here, I'm healthy. Not everything's back to normal, but I think that's true of a lot of women after they've had a baby, and everything's fine. You know, I've got a healthy baby, I'm pretty healthy apart from today with this cold, but that would happen regardless of whether I'd had a baby. And just giving myself time has kind of taught me that it's okay. I survived it. It was difficult at the time, but we've come through it, and like anything in life that you're dealing with at the time, it's difficult, but you know, giving yourself time, you work your way through it, you kind of let yourself grieve, if that's the right terminology to use. And it is a grieving process. You know, you've had this idea in your mind that you wanted a birth to go a certain way, and when it goes completely the opposite way, it is a bit of a grieving process that you need to go through to kind of come to terms with the fact that you didn't get to experience what you thought you were going to get to experience. Now I did go into the labour and to the birth thinking that it might change, but I guess you don't always know it until it happens. It's a bit like breastfeeding. I wasn't successful with it, but the reasons why I wasn't successful with it were not the reasons I thought I would stop. So it's coming to terms with those things, and giving yourself time is the biggest healer. And everyone says it, they've said it about so many things in life, and it is so true, so just give yourself time. And another one that was a big one for me was to prepare beforehand. So before my baby was due, I prepared meals in the freezer, I got everything in that I needed, stocked up on toilet rolls and essentials, and cleaned the house, and just so many different things that I prepared beforehand. Now looking back, there's probably other things I could have prepared for even more, but I had a long list of things that I wanted to get ready so that afterwards I didn't need to worry about those things, and that really, really did help. I will link above and below a blog post that I wrote about the things that helped me get through those first few weeks after giving birth, because they really did help me deal with the change of having a baby, the emotional side of it, that your body goes through. If after having a baby you then have to start worrying about what you're eating and cleaning the house because it wasn't clean beforehand, and you do want to still clean the house, well I did anyway, I still wanted a clean house, but I'd done a deep clean so I wasn't worried about it too much, and I'd got essentials in so I wasn't having to nip to the shop because we'd run out of toilet rolls, something as stupid as that. Now my husband was around for the first couple of weeks, so he was able to go to the shops, but even he was tired. You know, he had lost all that sleep the same as I had lost when I was in labour, so he was shattered as well. We had a newborn baby, and just preparing beforehand really, really helps. You don't know what kind of labour you're going to have, you don't know what kind of birth you're going to have, and you don't know what your recovery is going to be like. For me, I would say the bit that traumatised me the most was the recovery. I did have a difficult labour. It was a long labour, and my birth didn't go to plan, although it wasn't terrible. You know, there are a lot worse situations for people to have to go through. But for me, it was the recovery that I really struggled with. And so it was that time afterwards, when I was home, when I was having to deal with all these things by myself, that was a time that I really, really struggled with still being uncomfortable and in pain, and the emotional side of it. You know, I don't think I had postnatal depression, but I definitely had the baby blues, and I had them really bad. The slightest thing would set me off, and just preparing beforehand was such a blessing. You don't know what is going to come after you have your baby, so prepare for anything or everything, and that really, really helped. The next thing is to find someone to talk to, someone that hopefully is going through the same thing as you at this moment in time. So if you've just had a baby, try and find someone else who's just had a baby, because you'll find that although someone might have had a baby a year ago, their experience of what happened will have changed. You know, my experience of what happened 17 months ago has changed. I still remember it. I know they say you'll forget. I do still remember it. I guess I don't remember it quite as much as I did 17 months ago, because I know I have moved on from that. The idea of having another baby is okay to me. I'm still scared of the idea, but it's okay to me. Whereas for a long, long time, it wasn't okay with me. I did want another baby, but it wasn't okay for me to be pregnant, and it wasn't okay for me to have a baby, to have to give birth to the baby. So your experience has changed, even if it was only a year ago, although you still do remember it. So try and find someone who's going through it at a similar time to you. Now, my sister had her baby just under 5 months after me. I think that's right. And so obviously at the time when I had Tommy, she was still pregnant, so she hadn't gone through that. But it was close enough to my birth for me to be able to talk to her, and she would say things to me, and I'm like, oh my word, yes, that happened to me as well. So this is my next thing that helped, was to realise that other women had gone through the same as me, worse than me, maybe not quite as bad as me, but they'd gone through the same thing. Now, I didn't want my sister to have gone through the same thing as me. Her birth was different to mine, but in some ways it was the same. And I didn't want her to have to go through that. I wanted everything to be smooth sailing, no rips down below, any of that. But it's not always the case, and quite often with your first baby, it isn't. And now, if you're about to have your first baby, I don't want to scare you, but it's just a fact that most women, when it's their first, don't have a completely smooth sailing birth. But you're not alone. We have all gone through it. Most of us have gone through it. You'll find the odd one that says they haven't. And just knowing that she was doing some of the same things as I was. And the other thing that was really important was having someone that I felt close enough to share some of those things with, because having a baby is not a pretty game. It's not nice, and some of the things you have to go through are not nice, and you might not want to share them with certain people. At least I didn't want to. I didn't necessarily want to admit to those things that were happening to me, but I'm obviously close enough to my sister that we would share those things, that she would say something to me. I'm like, oh my word, yes, that's what happened to me. And I'd share something with her. She goes, oh yeah, that's what's happened to me. And it made it okay. It made it real. It made it, oh, I'm not the only one going through that. I'm not weird. I'm not kind of singled out as having the worst birth ever. I know I wasn't. I know that there's plenty of women that have gone through a lot worse than I have. But, when you're going through those things, you think, am I the only one that's having to deal with this? Am I the only one who's got a weak bladder after I've given birth? And the answer probably is that you're not the only one. But we don't talk about those things. And women don't tell you before you've had your first baby that this could happen. I guess not to scare you, and I get that, but at the same time, a little bit of heads up might have been nice, that these things might happen and it's okay. It's not unusual. Things should hopefully go back to normal afterwards. That weak bladder will still remain there kind of a little bit, but it won't be as bad as it was straight after giving birth. So having someone to talk to helped, and then knowing that they were going through a similar thing to me really helped as well. It just made me feel a little bit more normal, a little bit not weird. Just, yeah, it just really, really helped, and we could laugh about it, and you know, it was not nice, it was gross, it was uncomfortable, but we could have a laugh about it because we were both dealing with the same thing, or I dealt with it and she was dealing with it, or whichever. So we could have a bit of a giggle about it, and even our husbands couldn't fully understand. You know, you would say, oh, can't do that, it's uncomfortable, and they wouldn't fully understand that because they hadn't gone through it. Even though they'd seen us go through labour and birth, they hadn't fully experienced that, so they couldn't really understand it fully. And I didn't know if it was me having a bit of a whinge, complaining too much, or just being a bit sensitive to certain things. But when I had my sister telling me actually she was going through the same thing, these things were bothering her as well, I felt okay to be like that, because I knew that then I wasn't just being a bit silly, it was real. Now the last one on my list is probably more advice than anything else, and that is to seek medical advice or help if you need it. Now I did seek medical help, but not for my emotions. So I'm just saying, if that's what you need, if you are struggling to come to terms with a traumatic birth and it really is getting you down, then go to your doctor, speak to someone, speak to your health visitor, a midwife, tell them how you're feeling. Don't be ashamed of it if you are feeling a certain way. It's nothing to be ashamed of. You go through so much when you have a baby. Just your hormones, the change that's going through you, you know, going from being pregnant to not being pregnant, that is huge. You know, your body's just going through so much. Beside the fact that you've gone through something that's quite traumatic in giving birth, even if it's been plain sailing, that's hard work. And if it's not been plain sailing and things haven't gone as quite as planned and you're struggling to recover and you're still in pain and discomfort weeks later, seek medical advice. Now I did seek some medical advice afterwards because of certain things that were happening that were as a result of giving birth. So I went to the doctors and got the help that I needed so that I could recover quicker, because what was happening was I was starting to make a recovery, and then something would happen and then it would kind of set me back, because then I'd feel uncomfortable again, and I was being in discomfort again and not happy again. So getting that help really is important, and if it is an emotional thing that you need to get the help for, it might not be postnatal depression, but just getting that help will be vital to getting over that labour and birth, and just to help you move on. Having a baby is such a traumatic thing. You know, these little precious babies are a blessing to our lives, but it is such hard work. You get absolutely no sleep, and the change to your life is huge, and so you might just need a little bit of help just to speak to someone. I spoke to a practice nurse who was helping me for something that was physical in my body that was needing to be dealt with, and she was asking me how I was coping, and I was explaining things to do with my breastfeeding that wasn't working, and just the words that she said to me really, really helped me come to terms with the fact that I might not be able to breastfeed, to feel okay with that. And I hadn't always had the support that I felt I needed with my breastfeeding, but she wasn't going to help me with my breastfeeding because that wasn't what she did. But just the words that she said to me were so helpful and just really put my mind at ease, made me feel better that I was struggling. It didn't matter that I was struggling, and she was just saying, look, what you go through is really difficult, you know, giving birth is hard, having a new baby is hard, give yourself a break, let yourself get over this. And so that really helped. So even if it's not the right person to be speaking to, if you're there to see a nurse about one thing and they ask you how you're doing, just tell them I'm struggling with this is hard, and just be honest, and that should help. Now I'm sure there are so many other things that have helped me in the last year, but they're the ones that have come to mind to me this morning. I hope they've helped you. If you have had a difficult labour and birth and you need some help, go and see your doctor or health visitor, speak to someone. If you want to leave a comment below and need some help, I can't promise to help you, but I can have a listening ear. So, you know, I'm not a medical professional, so I can't help you in that way, but I am a listening ear. So if you want to vent or share your story, and maybe other women have been through a similar thing, that helped me so much, just being able to speak to someone else who had gone through a similar thing. I hope this has helped too. If you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!